60. Don't hold back on me. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Don't be so anxious. Sierra called out helplessly and continued, since this Connor dares to pretend to be a rich heir, it means that he's prepared to be exposed. If you rush and rashly now, not only will Mina not believe you, but she will also think that you are framing Connor. After all, you don't have any evidence now. When Eve heard Clara's words, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. Then, he frowned and asked, Sierra, what do you think we should do about this? Sierra stood in the same spot for a while before saying softly, actually, it's very simple. In any case, we already know Connor's identity. So, we don't need to be in a hurry to expose him. Then, when are we going to expose him? Eve asked helplessly. That's simple. After we go in, we'll pretend that nothing happened. We'll eat and drink as we should. Don't provoke Connor on purpose or talk to him. When we're done eating and ready to pay, I'll take the initiative to stand up and say that you shouldn't be the one to treat us, but Connor should be the one to treat us. Sierra paused for a moment before continuing. In the end, we'll let Connor pay the bill. If Connor is really a poor loser, then he definitely won't have the money to pay the bill. After all, there are so many of us eating here, so it will cost at least tens of thousands of dollars. Sierra, your idea is pretty good, Eve said excitedly. When that time comes, we will have evidence to prove that Connor is not some rich heir at all. Then, you can do your part and expose Connor. Mina will definitely believe you, Sierra said proudly to Eve. Sierra, you're way smarter than I am. If it were me, one definitely wouldn't have thought of that. Update on Biomicron X0VL. Siomicron M. Eve grinned and seemed to have agreed with Clara's idea. Remember, when the two of us go in later, pretend that nothing happened. Do you understand what I mean? Sierra whispered to Eve. Don't worry, I understand. Eve nodded without thinking. Sierra smiled in satisfaction and walked into the private room. In fact, Sierra had done so many things not entirely for Mina's sake. She was not afraid that Mina would be deceived. She did it for her vanity. Ever since she was young, Sierra liked to compare herself with Mina. Sierra smiled in satisfaction and walked into the private room. In fact, Sierra had done so many things not entirely for Mina's sake. She was not afraid that Mina would be deceived. She did it for her vanity. Ever since she was young, Sierra liked to compare herself with Mina. Ever since Sierra found out that Mina had found a very rich boyfriend, she was very dissatisfied. Why could Mina find such a rich boyfriend, but she couldn't get a rich boyfriend? Although Sierra did not show it on her face, she was still very unhappy deep down. That was why she had always wanted to come to Porthampton to meet Mina's boyfriend and see if he was really as rich as Mina said. Sierra had finally found a good opportunity to expose Connor. Of course, she was not willing to let it go. Some girls looked like best friends on the surface, but they were actually comparing themselves to each other deep down. Moreover, this kind of comparison was very scary. After Eve and Sierra returned to the private room, everyone was ready to order. As Eve and Sierra had known each other for a long time, the others did not pay much attention to their disappearance. Has everyone decided on what to eat? You don't have to be shy with me today. Just order whatever you want to eat. Anyway, This hotel is owned by my family. Don't save money for me." When Eve entered the private room, he exclaimed heroically, "Eve, if that's the case, then we're going to order whatever we want." Sasha Stein blinked and said to Eve, "Don't be shy. If you're shy, then you must think one can't afford it." Eve grinned and replied. He was not worried that Sasha and the others would order too much. On the contrary, he was worried that these people would order too little. Eve's spirit is really different. He's much more generous than some people, Sasha said with a smile. Mina naturally understood what Sasha meant. She couldn't help but frown slightly and opened her mouth to speak. But at this moment, Connor suddenly reached out and touched Mina, then shook his head at her, signaling her to ignore these people. Mina took a deep breath. She was very unhappy, but she did not say anything. Instead, she lowered her head and looked at the menu in front of her. Everyone began to order. Perhaps because they knew that this was a hotel owned by Eve's family, Sasha, Mavis Cage, Dustin Ward, and the others did not hold back at all. They picked up the menu and began to order crazily. They ordered sea cucumbers and abalones, shark fin soup, papaya stewed snow clams, steamed trout, and whatever else was expensive. In the blink of an eye, these people had ordered nearly $50,000 worth of dishes. When Eve saw that Sasha and the others had ordered so many things, not only was he not unhappy, but he also had a very bright smile on his face. Connor did not know what Eve and Sierra were planning. He felt that Eve might be stupid and rich. In order to be in the limelight in front of Mina, he was actually spending so much money. It was really not worth it. "Connor, aren't you going to eat anything? I see that you haven't ordered anything." Eve asked Connor with a smile after seeing Mina and Connor sitting there without saying anything. "Nope, what they've ordered is enough." Connor looked at Eve and shook his head gently. When Eve heard Connor's words, he smiled faintly. Then, he reached out and picked up the menu. He looked at everyone and asked, "Is there anything else that everyone wants to eat? Don't hold back on me." "Eve, we've already ordered enough. If we order more, we might not be able to finish it," Sasha hurriedly replied. Eve looked directly at the door and said softly to the waiter, "Let me see the list. I want to see how many things they've ordered." The waiter quickly came over and handed the list to Eve. After Eve took the list, he glanced at it briefly, and he was instantly shocked. This was because he realized that Sasha and the others had actually ordered dishes that cost nearly $50,000. They really did not hold back. A meal that cost $50,000 was quite shocking. Back then, when Connor treated the entire class to a meal, he only spent $70,000. However, there were fewer than 10 people here, and they had already ordered so many things. This meant that Sasha and the others did not hold back at all, and they did not have the slightest intention of saving money for Eve. 0.